Hey guys, welcome to another episode of TFB TV. Today, as promised, we've got these SVT-40 disassembly video. First of all, we'd like to make sure that all firearms are clear and safe at all times. Let's do a physical visual check of the chamber, magazine, and bolt face. Now to begin with, we want to take the receiver cover and pop it forward over the bolt and then pop it out of the rifle. Now, what you just saw is me incorrectly disassembling the rifle, and we'll get to why that is in a second. Now, when you take the spring out from the rear of the rifle, you're actually bending the springs and you're bending some of the rods that are in that delicate recoil spring. This is something you don't really want to do, and something I learned the hard way. I didn't break anything, but I learned that this is not how you're actually supposed to disassemble it. In fact, what you're supposed to do is, after taking the receiver cover off over the bolt, just take the bolt out from the front, and the way that is done is you slide the bolt to the rear, and there's a groove on the right hand side of the rifle where the bolt can travel out of by tilting the entire fixture out. This will allow the spring to naturally decompress out of the rifle. Once the bolt is outside of the rifle, we then want to take the tilt lock-in feature of it and separate the two pieces, very similar to an SKS. After we're done with the bolt and recoil spring, we want to move on to the other end of the rifle and next take the cleaning rod out. This is held in place by a spring-loaded lug inside the bayonet lug, and once that is taken out, we can then take the sling swivel off. Bear in mind, the sling swivel is also reversible, as we showed you in the previous video. The sling swivel will allow access to the gas tube cover and the upper handguard, which both slide out in opposite directions. Now that we have access to the gas system, there are two capsules that contain the rod that the gas system runs on, one at either end by the chamber and then by the gas tube itself. The one by the chamber is spring-loaded, so be careful when you're taking it out. Now, the gas tube and the gas plug is actually threaded inside the gas tube. Interestingly enough, the SVT-40 had an adjustable gas tube where you could adjust the amount of gas flow going into the system or cut it off entirely. This is a very innovative feature of an early semi-automatic rifle that you don't see in others. Now that we have the SVT-40 completely disassembled, let us examine sort of the simplicity in which this rifle was put together, but at the same time realize that jumping from, a 20th century Mosin Nagant to this guy right here was a bit of a hurdle for the average Soviet conscript, in that if you're taking a Mosin Nagant apart by simply pressing the trigger and releasing the bolt, taking apart the SVT-40, it might actually be difficult for a lot of soldiers to get down, especially in the 1940s. So putting the rifle back together, we have to start with the bolt and make sure that it is functioning properly with the firing pin and the tilt lock section working. Bear in mind, there are some reliability issues in slam fires with the SVT-40, so it's important to wear eye protection when firing the rifle. This is something that some modern day shooters have noticed, especially after wear and tear after 50 years. With the gas system, remember we have to encapsulate the system at both ends with those two caps, one at the chamber and then one at the gas tube. The spring-loaded portion goes in at the chamber. Once that is inserted, we can insert the gas rod and then that inserted into the gas tube, and make sure that is screwed on correctly as well. Once the gas system is completely assembled, we can then insert the handguard from the front that goes underneath the rear sight, and then the gas tube cover, which goes over the gas tube and is held in place by the sling swivel. Bear in mind, you can change this left or right, whichever direction you want the sling swivel to face. Once the sling swivel is in place, we can insert the cleaning rod, which is held in place by a little spring-loaded button underneath the bayonet lug. This completes the forward assembly of the rifle. Now, when inserting the bolt and the recoil spring, make sure to compress the recoil spring entirely with the two rods that conjoin it inside the bolt. There's a rear portion of the bolt with a circular bit where all this goes into. Make sure to not have them bent when inserting the bolt and to put it forward in a correct manner. Slowly compress the spring with the bolt, and at the same time trying to center the spring in the rear of the receiver. This can be very finicky, and it's probably going to be the most difficult task you'll encounter in disassembly and assembly of the SVT-40. However, once the bolt is inserted, make sure it can be pushed back and forth, and then take the recoil spring and press it underneath the receiver cover. This will allow the rifle to be function checked. Make sure to test it once with the trigger on safe, then with the trigger off safe, and then check for the trigger reset as well. Thank you very much for watching this video, guys. We really appreciate the viewership, and we invite you to watch more in the future. We'd like to thank Ventura Munitions for helping provide the ammunition for some of these video reviews that we have of various interesting historical firearms. We'd like to give them a shout out as well, because they help us with giving this sort of channel the sort of video equipment and other sorts of support that we need to bring these videos to you on a weekly and even bi-weekly basis. Thank you very much again, and we hope to see you next time.